just because we are pointing out the flaws within the system, one, like you said, doesn't mean everybody who's operating within this system endorses it. Most people do not. And doesn't also mean that you can't gain something positive from it. It just means that where we are in our world and in our timeline, it needs to change. It needs to develop. It needs to get better. It needs to improve. And the goal has to be healing and not treating.
Whoo! Love that. The Always Be podcast.
Hi. Welcome to the Always Be podcast, where we talk about transpersonal topics. I am Avery, and this is Brenna.
Hi, I'm
We
Brenna.
are your hosts.
We're hosts of this podcast. Welcome.
Yes. So Brenna and I were just discussing a little bit about summarizing last episode and then what we want to get into on this episode.
Great.
So for new listeners, a quick definition of what transpersonal psychology was, which is our last episode, is sort of the connection between traditional Western psychotherapy and spirituality and mysticism and more wisdom traditions. So the field of transpersonal psychology aims to work with both the self and spirit and connection outside of self. We want to talk also just about transpersonal values and a transpersonal mindset and a transpersonal way of living, because what we talk about on this podcast won't always be psychotherapy related. Right?
Yeah. I think that the idea of the word transpersonal is used to describe psychology a lot, but what was coming up for me, and I was telling Avery this over the week, was that there's also almost a transpersonal mindset where you can see not just someone's psyche, but you look at the world in a way where there's less division of self, and our self transcends and includes the parts of our shadow, our whole body, our community, our physical environment, our world, and our larger spiritual universe.
Mm-hmm.
And when we look at something transpersonally, we're taking into account factors that are expansive, different realms. I guess you could say. Yeah. So that's, I think, what was coming up for me, why it was challenging to define it, because I think their transpersonal psychology, as seen as a branch or a wave of psychology, has essentially a definition, but sometimes the way that we use it when we're saying, oh, how do we see something transpersonally, what we're referring to is a lens through which we view anything that exists as containing a lot more than just these finite parts.
Containing and being in relationship to.
Yeah.
Almost like everything.
Yeah. There's I was just reading this section in this Buddhist book that I love called Quantum and Lotus, and they were talking about interdependence. That's a big Buddhist term that I feel is that's essentially what's happening, is nothing exists without anything else. So it's all this space of interdependence.
Yeah. The other thing I think that's been coming up a lot for me in this past week is just wrapping my head around a decolonizing framework of psychotherapy and just wellness and mental health in general. And so questioning a lot of the systems that exist. And we'll get into that too. In this episode, we're going to be sort of talking about all of the issues we have with the current mental health industrial complex and our personal beliefs and values around how we choose to operate in it, outside of it, in relationship to it, all of that.
Is
But
that
this
your
week,
vibe?
yeah, my vibe is really
Yeah, I was
like,
gonna say, let's do a little check-in,
let's do
vibe
a
check.
vibe.
Yeah.
My vibe is like, I feel like a ball of yarn that's been unraveled and re-raveled like a million times, and I'm in the unraveling stage of that ball of yarn right now. Every thought that I
Cool.
have is somehow connected to examining if there's a colonialist like perspective to it. Like even when I got dressed today, I wore an all white outfit and I was like, oh, I feel so good being in an all white outfit. And then I was like, why do I feel so good being in an all white outfit? And it just felt like this like purity, like, yeah. Part of it's like it makes me feel light. It makes me feel closer to my spiritual connection, makes me feel closer to source.
Yeah.
But then part of it is also like, has there been a colonization on color and expression through different colors and like, so it's like every thought that I'm having is somehow in
Yeah.
relationship to this ball of yarn.
Yeah, I love that metaphor. I love that metaphor. And like I resonate with, I'm like not trying to say I'm jealous of your experience because I think I can resonate with having been in like experiences where I'm just doubt. There's like a doubt kind of anything where it's like I'm really just looking at everything critically. Sometimes I call it an existential crisis,
Mm-hmm.
and which it might be.
Yeah, I mean, it
But
is sort of. Or like,
I think ultimately it ends up being a good thing to do for me in the past when I've had experiences where I'm like, what the fuck? I don't know anything. Is anything like I'm operating in all these false beliefs and I'm just like out in deep water. What the hell is happening? And eventually sometimes it opens up the window for fucking wisdom to land. So
mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't
What is
envy
your
you
vibe?
though. I my vibe is I think I went through a portal this week, and I'm not sure if it was a global thing because a couple other people, I know you were having an experience. I got real real big sad lonely angry feeling. Like I was saying to people that I felt a couple days ago, I felt like I felt the way I did when I first left that abuse situation.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just surprising to me because it had been, it's been like 4 months now. But then something really landed like yesterday. So whatever that was, I'm feeling like I got a bit of my assignment.
Mm. Thank God. Thank you. Thank you. You're listening. You know what? The other thing was, I felt super validated because I felt like this week I found other people who are on the same assignment as us. And it made me
Yeah.
feel much less alone and much less like,
Yeah.
it's just like we're in it together, and we have other people who
Yeah.
have the same download and the same assignment and the same creative idea, so
Yeah.
it's good.
We're
We're
all
not
just
alone.
reflecting it back to each other. Yeah. Yeah. That's what I was gonna say to you is I really feel like you've been getting your download and assignment too, though, just based on stuff that we've been talking about.
Totally.
You were saying it reminded me of what we've laughed about before, where last week you were saying, I'm ready for my assignment. And like the way that like you need to be opened up to fully receive it, it's so painful. And it reminds me of like, we've both laughed about this before when we've been like, I'm here for the next stage, like bring it on, I got it. And then when the next thing arrives, I'm like, I didn't want to do this though, this is not okay. Like I was like, I was down for it, but not this. Like this isn't what I wanted to do. It wasn't supposed to be hard. I'll be like, bring on the challenge. And then as soon as the challenge gets here, I'm like, but not this challenge. I don't want this challenge.
It's like, can I exchange? Yeah, that happens all the time.
I changed my mind.
I take it back. I take it back. Take it back.
I take it back. I take it back.
Yeah. I've seen some really funny memes about this recently, which is like asking the universe like to guide you, and then it's like the universe guiding you, and it's like in a waterfall, or like it's just like remaining grateful, the universe guides you, and then it's like the experience. It's it's not fun. It's not fun.
No, it's not fun. Every single time I forget that it's not fun. I really think it's a cognitive dissonance thing. Like, I've never given birth to a child, but I know women who've talked about it's like you forget how painful it is because otherwise there's no way you'd go through it again. I feel similarly about working through personal challenges. It's like, oh, that was fine, I'll do it again. And then you go to do it again, I'm like, no, just kidding, this sucks. Like, what was I thinking? Like, so I think it's almost like that. Like you reach this place of calm and you're like, okay, I can handle something harder. And then when you're in it, you're like, that was me on Thursday. I mean, I was wailing in a way that I haven't in a long time. It felt good.
So jealous.
But yeah, I don't know how to help you get there because it bubbled up in a way that crying I've been sort of being intentional about crying, but this one I was like just in my bed, just be like that. It felt great. I mean, felt cathartic. It's painful, but cathartic. Yeah. Highly recommend.
Let's get into it.
Yeah, I'm here for it.
Do you want to formulate a question? What's the question we're trying to answer for this episode?
The first thing that came into my brain was like a simple, easy one is, where does the mental health care industrial complex fall short?
Everywhere.
Everywhere. The other question was that one that was offered about adjusting. It's the one that has stuck in my brain and came up for me yesterday. It was a professor of ours said this, and I wish I remembered exactly who it was because I'm feeling a little sad now that I can't actually reference this individual. But he said, is it ethical to adjust someone to a sick society?
Yeah.
Maybe that's the question.
That is the question.
That's the question.
Is it ethical to adjust someone to a sick society? No.
It feels easy enough to answer. It feels like I think the answer is no, but when you are in integrity with feeling that no, it like you have to follow through. Like what's happening for the two of us, I think, is in regards to how we want to operate as mental health professionals in the world is, how do we stay in integrity with that no? If we believe it's unethical to adjust someone to a sick society, how do I stay in congruence with that value of mine? And I think that is ultimately like what you and I have been talking about for like years, and why we've ended up making deviations from, say, our peers, not for any judgment of anybody else in the space. And I think nobody makes a decision in a vacuum, and our personal histories and things play into our path a lot too. But I think ultimately that question is the question.
Yeah. So just a little context background. Brenna and I met in our master's program. We went to a school called Naropa University. It's in Boulder, Colorado. But we were in a program that was a hybrid program. So almost everyone in our cohort did not live in Boulder, Colorado. Our training is in mindfulness-based transpersonal counseling. So it's oriented towards clinical mental health counseling, but there's this whole other half or more than half to it that comes from indigenous wisdom traditions. It comes from philosophies in the East. It comes from spiritual practices. It comes from ancestors that believed in true healing. So for me, it was about halfway through the program, I kind of had this realization that I did not want to get licensed. When you go to become a therapist, generally the trajectory is you get your master's degree, then you gain hours, anywhere from like I think 1,200 to 3,000 hours as an associate licensed professional. Then you can.
It has different names
apply.
in different places.
Right.
Sorry.
Right. You're right.
Yeah.
It could be like a registered. Yeah. You're halfway in between. You're not a full independent operating licensed person because you have to complete a certain amount of hours supervised by somebody else. Then you can take a test. What's the test called?
NCE.
That stands for the test.
The National Counseling Exam, I think.
Okay, National Counseling Exam. I am so
embarrassed. We both were like, fuck it, so far before all this that we
like, I don't know what the test stands for.
People are talking about it. I'm embarrassed.
I'm not. And then you can apply for licensure. So you can operate as an independent licensed person. So that's the general path that a lot of clinicians take. When you're gaining your hours, most people go into community mental health, which means you're working at an agency or you're working within a group practice. And then it kind of feels like once people have worked for, say, anywhere from 5 to 10 to 15 to 20 years doing that, then they kind of eventually want to go into private practice because they're fed up with a lot of the system. So a little rundown. So about halfway through our 3-year program, I realized I did not want to get licensed. My personal experience in my practicum and in my internship was I could not provide true care to my clients. And I was always like breaking the rules and getting in trouble because I had to follow certain rules. I had to follow certain rules. And the rules were getting in the way of providing true healing and care to my clients. And so I just didn't know what to do other than break the rules and shoulder getting in trouble. So I realized pretty quickly
can I pause you to ask, do you have like a specific example? Because I think when I'm hearing you say like break the rules, I want to clarify that like you, Avery, are a very attuned and ethical human being, and it's not as if you were doing anything. So I'm just curious, like, so no, but I you know what I mean? Like just in terms of like, you were actually going above and beyond for your clients. That was how you were breaking the quote unquote rules. You like I just wanted to name that because the things that you were doing were actually, it was like outside of your quote unquote scope, but by like making calls to people to try to help these clients get services and things like that. And you were getting reprimanded. You were like, no one else is helping them. And they're like, but sorry, that's the box you have to
Yes.
stay in. They need this.
Yeah.
You can't provide that, even though you technically can provide it as a
Yes. Yes. Yes.
person.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for
I just want to
clarifying
name
that.
that.
Right.
The way that I was
So,
reading, I wanted to clarify what was
yeah,
actually happening for you.
totally. The way that I try to kind of describe it is these rules are sort of one size fits all rules that don't fit anyone. It's a one size fit all rule that does not fit anyone. And that's so that people who are licensed can ensure their own liability protection. This is kind of a lot to get into, but the example that I'll give is
Yeah.
I was working at a high school. I was working through an agency and I was placed at the high school. Now, a client of mine was a teenager, had severe eating disorder issues, like it was really bad. And I was trying to work with the school guidance counselor to come up with an like a 504 plan, an IEP, get in touch with her mom, a parent who was um, not taking enough action to get help for her daughter. So her physical safety was the concern because it's eating disorders can be a really passive form of suicidal ideation. Well, they're not really passive, but they're kind of viewed that way. So anyway, the problem was I got a release of information, which is the rule you're supposed to follow. I got a signed release of information between me and the guidance counselor that the mom signed, and my agency basically was like, you cannot get a release of information and you cannot work directly with this guidance counselor to speak to the mom. You're not allowed to do that, and you're not allowed to research what eating disorder treatments take her Medicaid insurance plan. You can't reach out to these two, and this is all stuff that I was trying to do in my off hours to get more resources for this family to be able to actually provide them, hey, here is a program that I found out about that takes your insurance if you apply this way, so that it was vetted. Anyway, all of these things I was not really supposed to be doing. So I got reprimanded, and I was basically like, I do not know what to do in this situation. The thing that they said is the only thing you can do is tell this child, like work with basically repeat her emotions back to her. That's the only thing you can do. And I was like, really put in a corner. So thank you for asking me to give an example, because it is kind of confusing for a lot of people who are like, why would you break the rules? Aren't the rules in place to protect clients? And in theory, yes, but it's not ensuring their actual health and well-being. It's really protecting, I want to say, like the provider more than the client. So we both decided not to get licensed, and here we are.
The decision that both of us have made is yes, to not get a clinical license from the states that we live in. It's a really complicated space because essentially coaching and counseling are both forms of offering support in the way that you are working through issues that people are having in their life, setting goals, dismantling unhelpful beliefs, doing the actions of counseling in this relational way. And there's this coaching space too. And that is all outside of this clinical mental health care world. And like all the license that we are not getting are clinical licenses, clinical meaning medical kind of in a
Mm-hmm.
way.
Mm-hmm.
And the clinical mental health care world, I just really think that this word is important because the clinical mental health care model is all based around the DSM. This is something that we were going to talk
Mm-hmm.
about, which is, for those of you who don't know, the Diagnostic Statistical Manual. So it's essentially a big book of what the American Psychological Association has decided are valid problems and which and the symptoms associated with those problems. If you have never read the DSM, you might be under the impression that it gives you the cause of these disorders. It's not. It's simply a way of describing a psychological state that this board has declared is a unhealthy, disordered way of being. And it's on round 5 or so right now. There's been little iterations, but we're in the DSM-5. So essentially, and there's just so much to say in terms of this is the book that is the, like, these are the things that are allowed to be wrong with you. And when you are going into the clinical mental health care model as a client, you essentially have to prove that you are experiencing one of these disorders. You have to be in a diseased, disordered space, and the therapist or psychologist or psychiatrist or counselor needs to agree, and then they will tell you specifically what umbrella your disorder falls under, and then they will work with those symptoms in this
Right.
frame. So it's
Which
very,
they call a diagnosis.
which they call
Because they
diagnosis.
do
Yes, sorry, thank you.
diagnosis. Yeah, yeah.
Everyone else knows it as a diagnosis.
Right.
But so it all feels fine and dandy pending the understanding that this book is the authority. And I think what most anyone who works in the mental health care field, basically, like, even just looking as wasn't homosexuality a freaking DSM mental health diagnosis in one of the iterations of the DSM? Like,
Yeah,
truly,
not that
this
long
is,
ago.
it is a
Yeah.
flawed book. It is a flawed book because it is Western centric. It is patriarchal. It is like based around capitalism. This is something I said last week
Right.
that Avery was reminding me of, which is like the it it it's just like it's basically like, if you're not fitting into the mold, then you're a problem, and we'll try to
Right.
get you back on track. That's the question. Is it ethical to adjust someone to a sick society?
Yeah. And the other sort of, in addition to it being patriarchal and capitalistic, it upholds white supremacy and colonization. So, like, one of the clearest examples of this is that in indigenous communities, shamans, which are held as sort of like medicine people who have like the the strongest connection with spirit, people who can work as healers, people who can transcend this realm and work in different spiritual capacities, who they uphold as one of the most revered members of their community. In the DSM, you would call it schizophrenia. So it's like, are you here as a gift? Are you a gift to our community? Are you a gift? Is the way that you relate in this reality and the way that you embody your mind and your spirit this beautiful thing? Or are you a problem that we don't know how to orient ourselves around because you can't be a functioning member of capitalistic society? So you have schizophrenia.
Yeah, I think, yeah, yeah. And I think that there's plenty of people who are manifesting, say, an anxious state. So you're going to get a generalized anxiety disorder. The challenge with the whole medical model is essentially, it is first of all, it puts the burden on the individual. Secondly, it
Mm-hmm.
makes these experiences that people are having wrong in some way,
Mm-hmm.
like they're broken.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, the way that the world is right now, if you're not freaked out about it in some way, then you are like, then that's disorder. The people who are not having anxiety right now are the like, that to me feels more
Yes.
out of order than having anxiety right now in this world. And we're like, oh, why are the kids, so many kids have anxiety? It's like the
Right.
fact that it's just placed, the burden of the wrongness is placed all on the individual, and that is a big problem. Although I do want to say something right now, just to say a lot of these conversations are happening in the mental health care space,
Yes.
whether about systems of oppression, about the reality, the dislike of the DSM, bringing in differential diagnoses, different ways of explaining things that do make sense, things that don't make sense, the limitations that come from this book. I want to be like, just want to acknowledge right now that we're not the only people talking about this, and that it's happening in that space too. And there are plenty of clinical mental health professionals that see the flaws as we see them
Yes.
from within the system, and that it's
Yeah.
not as if the dialogue isn't happening around um, people who are affected by racism, sexism,
Right.
misogyny,
Right. The
socioeconomic
other
status. Like, this is big, and people are getting trained in how that is a factor in
right.
your mental health.
Right. The other thing that just feels kind of important for me to say is if you have been through this system and have been given a diagnosis and treatment and that has benefited you and helped you, that is okay too. Like that
Yeah.
it's what we have to work with is what we have to work with. And just because what we have to work with is inherently a problem doesn't mean that every person who has received a diagnosis that has somehow benefited from it is wrong. It's like, I've been diagnosed with ADHD. I've been diagnosed with depression. I relate myself to somebody who has depression. I take antidepressants. And I think all the time about why I decided to do that because I felt like I wasn't being a functioning member of society. That's something that I still work with all of the time, but it also has benefited me. It's benefited me a lot from being able to act in a place of power instead of having my lived experience and my lived trauma alter my mind where I'm disempowered and stuck. So it's like, just because we
Yeah.
are pointing out the flaws within the system, one, like you said, doesn't mean everybody who's operating within the system endorses it. Most people do not. And doesn't also mean that you can't gain something positive from it. It just means that where we are in our world and in our timeline, it needs to change, it needs to develop, it needs to get better, it needs to improve. And the goal has to be healing and not treating.
Whoo! Love that.
Yeah.
Yes, I love that, and I love the acknowledgement, because as you were speaking that, I was thinking to myself, yes, this is still so alive in me, and we are still consistently having conversations about whether we should get a license. Like, I want to be clear that this is not what's the only thing that's happening for us, is that it feels clear that our work is not in this clinical mental health model. You and I are just going to strive and out in a different realm. And there's a lot of people who are doing supportive mental health care work that aren't in this clinical model. There's lots of nonprofits, there's lots of um, personal growth workshops and places and services that people do are happening. And so, and then I think what you're naming is also like this consistent work to internally dismantle all of this stuff. And I think that, yeah, like while you were speaking, I wanted to say that when I first became a DBT counselor, I was like,
Mm-hmm.
this dialectical behavior therapy, for people who don't know. All of our friends are like, when was Brenna going to bring up DBT? Well, it's now. When I first started learning DBT, I was like, this is stupid. This is so basic, and this can't be helpful to anyone. And I think it's dumb. I'm a huge DBT convert now in my life. I think it's great. I think it really works, and I love it. And I still talk about a lot of the skills. I still think they're really valuable. I've seen it work for people. It's real. It is super great. And
Mm-hmm.
it's just stages. It's just steps. I think what we're noticing is the mental health care model, the clinical mental health care model, reaches its limit,
Mm-hmm.
and there's nothing else.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you want to be like a new age hippie and start going to a lot of circles, which is kind of like what there is. Like, that is the option. It's like this clinical model, or you're into this space where we're just doing sound baths. And I love me a good sound bath. Like, I just don't want to be a hater. I have literal singing bowls right there. I love sound baths. But
Yeah.
that is like, it's just, it's like we want there to be an option. And also there's plenty of people who are harmed. Like, there's plenty of people who just, yeah, we want there to be something else, so that if you don't fit in the box, like just school is exactly the way that people are talking about school neurodivergencies. It's like, if you don't fit in this box, there should be something else. We
Mm-hmm.
should be trying to push the limits and create a framework for healing that is more flexible and can lift and support a greater diversity of people. Full stop.
Full stop. Yeah. Yeah. I
So
want
that's what
to
we
bring
want to
it
be.
back a little. Yeah, yeah, we want to do that. I want to bring it back a little bit to just explaining a little more of the ins and outs of the mental health clinical perspective, because you kind
Yeah.
of were giving this good rundown of like the DSM having a diagnosis, what happens after
Yeah.
that. And I think the second part that people don't have like a window into is once you have received a diagnosis, insurance companies are in control of deciding how much care you get. So if you're a provider, say you're a therapist who works with three different insurance panels, say you work with Cigna, Aetna, and I don't know, Blue Cross Blue Shield. Okay. So that means you see clients who are covered through those insurance companies. If people have that insurance, they must receive a diagnosis. And then, with whatever diagnosis that is, the insurance company decides how much care and coverage they get. That could be 6 sessions, that could be, I don't know, 6 months, but there's a lot of regulation coming from the insurance companies and coming from the medical industrial complex, which is
Yeah.
psychiatry, it's pharmaceuticals, um, it's all connected. So
Mm-hmm.
if you're working through insurance, you have to do a shit ton of paperwork. Yeah, so in your paperwork, you have to prove to the insurance companies that your client has a diagnosis of depression, that they're really not doing well, that they're sick and they have a problem, and that you know what to do to help them to fix that problem. And the battle that providers go through is, I'm helping them, they're getting better, but they're still bad. They're still bad enough that you have to support me and fund me through your insurance company, but
Yeah.
they are getting better. So I'm proving to you that the work that we are doing together is helping this person get better, but only a little bit at a time, because clients need ongoing care a lot of the time. So it's all very regulated and very controlled. It's not just a diagnosis. You know, it's like the insurance company, the ethics board, everything that governs over a practitioner is controlling their ability to provide care. It's controlling their ability to provide un I want to say unadulterated, but that's not the word. It's like unimpinged. Like they get to decide how this person is sick and how they get better, and you have to follow their rules. So you're constantly
Yeah.
arguing and battling because it doesn't work
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah. I think that, wait, shoot, I had something. Oh, I was going to say that clinicians will be like, oh, well, you just got to like fudge with the notes and fudge with the not fudge with the notes, like you have to learn how to write notes, so that you have to learn how to write notes for insurance companies. And to me, I'm like, what like for real, all of us together, we're like, oh yes, please, Mr. Insurance Man, like this is the deal, is I'm like, I will not bow to these court, like to these insurance monsters, because like, yes, we can cater, but why are they telling us what to do? These aren't medical professionals. These are insurance people. So this is just this huge thing. And yeah, the paperwork component, this is the deal I'm watching. I'm not going to like name the practice that I was like working with, but oh my God, it's like the most wonderful, kind human being who truly wants to help very, very mentally ill human beings that are really, really suffering. They are having a really, really persistent, severe mental illness. This is very high acuity for the psych people in the room, and she's drowning, drowning in different Medicare shifts in policy, shifts in deadlines, in or paperwork to be able to treat in this way, insurance for this. And to me that's like, it's systemic. It's systemic. Yes, there are people who have the capacity to work within it, but no one should have to do it. Just because you are managing doesn't mean that that's how it should be. I think that that's what makes me so upset, is I'm like, this woman is one of the, she's fucking rocks. She does really good work. And like, this agency is getting pushed out of the clinical mental health care space. Like, truly, I mean, I've been encouraging her. I'm like, make yourself a nonprofit. Like,
Yeah.
because, and not for lack of trying, not for lack of good intentions, not for all the slog and the effort. And and so this is what is happening, is the people who are losing, ultimately the clinicians and the clients.
Sorry. I had to sneeze, but I didn't let it come out. Keep going. Keep going.
No, that was the end. That was my stop. I was like, oh,
yes.
Well, we could talk about people getting pushed into private practice.
Okay, I had a thought though.
Yeah.
So we've given you a bit of an explanation of what the path is like for a clinician. We've given you a bit of insight into what getting licensed means and what working with insurance means and what diagnosing means. But I think, and we've talked a little bit about what we want to do instead and the inherent issues that we see with the way that this system has been designed and upheld. This DSM, which is this book that is maybe 2 or 3 inches thick, full of
so big,
pathologizing the human experience, is the problem. We do not need to pathologize the vastness of the human experience. We need to experience it. We need to express it. We need to heal it. We need to work with it. The system is not designed to treat holistically, and it is not designed for queer, trans, BIPOC people at all. Like, it will pathologize your identities to the point where you cannot leave feeling like inherently who you are is not a diseased problem person. I mean, I can't speak from that I can't speak from the perspective of a trans BIPOC person. But what I can say is that human suffering is part of the human experience. That is what us people who care about the wellness of others want to work with. We want to work with human suffering. We want to make it a little bit less. We want to make it a little more tolerable. We want people to be in their fullest expressions of their soul's purpose and their potential and their highest capacity and power. But we cannot do so by being inside this system of care, because it will strip all of your power and all of your drive to heal away from you and inhibit you to be able to provide true healing in community.
I'm just sitting with that because it's a very big statement.
It's a big statement.
It's a big statement. Here's how I feel. Mental health care has come up because people's mental state was considered a problem. So ultimately, the idea of something being a problem means that it has to be a problem to something. The idea that we are a problem is something that we are sold by a capitalistic, patriarchal society, white supremacy, that like wants to keep people operating in a way that is beneficial to the perpetuation of that system.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, at the core of the idea, at the core of this whole idea of working on self and quote unquote healing is a lot of oppressive systems. Is it ethical to adjust someone to a sick society? I want to be like conscientious of understanding that not all that this alternative option doesn't exist yet for most people, and that reaching out for help from a professional for something that's going on is very important. So we don't all have access to an alternative right now. Most people don't. And there's a lot of people who are saying, like, I will take whatever diagnosis because I just need someone to talk to and someone to help. I think it is going to be a process. So I just want to name that for individuals.
Yeah.
At this time, that we wish there was a better system, but that doesn't mean that we like just I think it's just important to start to bring some nuance to the conversation, because I want to be conscientious of the fact that there are still a lot of the stigma has definitely shifted in a lot of ways. I'd say that especially millennials, Gen Z are very pro counseling therapy, just very like that. Just the stigma has just feels like it really has shifted away, but that there are still a lot of older people who see the idea of seeking out any type of mental health care as being a weakness. And I just want to name that, like, yes, I think there's definitely problems with the system, but I would like to make sure that nobody feels like they're discouraged from seeking help if they need it. And I
Yeah.
just want to be, I just want to bring that nuance to the conversation, because we see all of these problems, absolutely. And then it's just, there's just no right answer. I think that that's what, yeah, I think that that's ultimately what ends up
Yeah.
where we end up. Yeah. So that's all.
So the biggest thing is that Brenna and I's assignment, which is very clear, is that we are people who are contributing to building the new alternative system.
Yeah.
And I would
Yeah.
love to call in and invite anyone else on the same
Anyone
assignment.
else?
Please reach out.
Please. The
Please.
thing that I was feeling is actually also how I would love to empower. So, oh, this is actually something I'd love to just talk about, even though I know we're getting long. The mental health care system creates barriers for people who are beautiful, talented healers to do healing work. First of all, you just pay a shit ton of money to get your master's degree. So privilege, all the way through a master's education. That is 6 years. That is like at least like that's be 7 years of time to getting a bachelor's and a master's degree that you need to get this license. They're working as an intern. You're most of the time you're not getting paid. Huge barrier. And then as you're getting licensed, you have to pay for supervision, or you have to work for an agency where you're really not getting paid very much money. If you have a family, I'm just going to be clear that it is not lucrative to go into this space, and that there's a bunch of people who cannot afford to do this work, but who are beautiful, caring, and healing individuals. And so part of the thing that I'm really thinking, Avery, and I don't know if we've actually talked explicitly about this, is like, I would like, there's so many people who are so good at maybe not working in this clinical way, but who have personal experience, who can come in as mentors and guides and support for other people. And you don't have to know diagnoses, you don't have to understand how to write clinical notes, but you have your own experience, and it's super valuable. And so that's another part of what I see as a vision for us in the future, is empowering individuals who have the who have talent, like a gift
Mm-hmm.
for inspiring others and supporting others, and who want to help others. Like, this is what makes me so angry, is that it's all these beautiful, wonderful people who want to help others, and they are getting burned out by these systems, and or they're not even able to access the systems at all
Right.
when we could use them.
Right. And yeah, a big
So
part of the work
call out to
that we,
individuals.
right. The work we want to do is collective, community oriented work. Not, you don't have to be credentialed. You have to want to help people heal, and you have to want to help yourself heal. And our intention eventually is to be able to have a real space where we are working in collaboration with other amazing human beings collectively
Yeah.
to help the community heal. That's the goal. In an accessible
I
way. It doesn't have to be me leading. It doesn't have to be Brenna leading. It could be the person who arrived for help, who could offer the most insightful thing to the group. Like you're saying, it is a collective endeavor for collective healing.
the thing that I'm feeling is like, I just want to name, this is a bit of like a, this has been an invitation, because I find that the people who are most opposed to non quote unquote clinical professionals being qualified are the people who took the time to get the license and the qualification. So I really think there's like a thing that happens when you have to release some authority that you have in the world because you checked these boxes. There is, yeah. So the thing is, I don't find that people that want help have anything to say about licensure. They're like, I don't care, can you help me? And you're like, yeah. And then they're like, you really helped me. This is amazing.
Right. And
That
also, I think it's like we see you and we know how hard you are working and we know how much you care and we
yeah,
know how
that's
much
true.
you sacrificed and we know how much you have given up, whether you have had the privilege to be able to get certified or not. We see you and we empathize with what you have sacrificed in order to be somebody who is helping in the only system that we
Yeah.
have right now set up to help. We see you. And if you don't want to do it anymore, we understand because we're not even doing it
Yeah.
to start. I don't have the capacity. I don't have the capacity
Yeah.
to even start. I don't. So if you are that person, we see you. We are not invalidating your experience. You are an amazing human being. And if you can't do it anymore, we also invite you to come collaborate with us because your experience matters.
I feel like this podcast has been like a series of like one of us laying down like kind of a harsh truth and then the other one softening it. That's what I felt like you just did for me. And I felt like I did that for you earlier. I was like, you're right. You're right. Okay. Yeah. Cause it's like, it's not about who's right and who's wrong. And I appreciate your balance to what I had just shared because I want to, yeah. Yes.
Well,
So that's all. Thank you.
there's so much truth in both.
There
There
is.
is.
And I like, this is why we're here working collaboratively to take all perspectives and to make it and to understand. And honestly, at the end of the day, all of the people in this mental health industrial complex are victims of the complex.
Right.
Clinicians are burned out, clients are suffering. And there is like a, and it just goes back to what you said last week, which is like it's just that question of like, can we fix it from within? And the other thing I just want to say is I don't believe any decisions are made in a vacuum. And the other day I was saying to someone that I think all decisions are intuitive and then we just create the, the justifications for it after we've made the decision. So I just want to say like, there is something to be said. Like we feel so called to work outside of this clinical model because that's our truth. And to us, all of these things make sense. And I think there are definitely many, many people that just know that they're called to be in the clinical model and that's their role.
Mm-hmm.
So ultimately, we're not trying to convince anybody, I guess. I'm not trying to convince anyone of anything. I've stopped trying to convince people. People will be like, wait, why aren't you getting licensed? And I'll just be like, it's not the choice for me.
It's not right for me.
Full stop.
Yeah.
Because
it's not right for me.
It's not right.
That is the only explanation I can give you.
Period. And people are getting better at it. Like I was talking to my friend on the phone the other day, and he was like, "You seem really solid on that decision." I was like, "Yeah.
It's taken a lot
because I am." Yeah. And it was so hard for me to be in the final stages of my internship, letting my supervisor know that I wasn't going to be getting licensed, and just getting like, "Are you sure? But you should." Blah blah blah. And it was fucking so hard for the people pleaser in me. Like, this is something I'm working on. And did I tell you about this yesterday?
Let's do what we're working on, and then we gotta end it.
We gotta get out. Oh yeah, you have to go to a party. I'm sorry. Oh, what I'm working on is telling the truth and like not pretending to consider something that I've already chosen not to. And the story is that yesterday I went into the store to get a tiny bit of Dole Whip, which is like pineapple ice cream. And I was like, can I get a little Dole Whip lick? And he's like, yeah. And I said, oh, I don't want to. Oh, I came here to get Poke Bombs and they didn't have any. So I'm just going to get Dole Whip instead. And he's like, did you look at our menu? Could you get some? You can get something on the menu. And I go, no, I don't want anything from your menu.
Truth.
Anyway, it was a proud moment for me
Yeah.
to just be like, no, actually, like this people pleaser in me would have been like, oh yeah, well, I don't know. But I was like, no, actually, I don't want anything from the menu. I know that.
Mm-hmm.
And then he was just laughing at me. I was like, no offense. He's like, no, it's fine.
Yeah. Speaking your truth.
Speaking my truth and not apologizing for it and not pretending to consider something that I already know I don't want to do.
Yeah. I'm working on holding my community accountable in a way that feels like an invitation instead of an accusation. And the biggest thing that's coming up for me in that is my community is really just a reflection of myself. So it's like I want to hold my community accountable, but really all I can do is hold myself accountable and lead through example and invite people to participate with me. But it's a little complicated. I want to hold people accountable, so I have to hold myself accountable and then invite people to come do that with me and not be the like monitor of other people's decisions.
That makes my Dole Whip story seem like stupid. As you were talking, I was like, oh, my Dole Whip. No, but it's fine. It's important.
They're equal.
Equal. Yeah. Yeah, man. I love that. Yeah.
And so here we
this
must
was
end.
A lot. Yeah, it feels
really
like
good.
We're gonna need like maybe we just covered a lot of stuff. Oh my goodness. And this was a spicy episode, Avery.
Yeah.
It felt spicy.
Yeah.
Makes me nervous.
I know.
I'm telling my truth.
Okay. Right. There's a lot of nerves in stepping into your power and taking a risk and learning through trying.
Yeah. Yeah. And I also I think like you're saying, like open for invitation for thinking, for like dialogue and balance. And yeah, you got to go.
I have to go. I have to go. I love you.
I love you. Have fun.
Excited for what's to come next.
Woohoo! Yeah, I spent a bunch of time working on shit this morning, so I'm excited to share it with you.
Yay!
The vision of Always Be Collective is of an inclusive, innovative, and intuitive healing practice that uses wisdom from the mind, body, heart, and spirit. We strive to establish a community of mental health practitioners who share a common goal to expand beyond the limitations of the current mental health care system. We provide services aimed towards individual and collective healing. You can visit us at alwaysbecollective.com.